Good afternoon, and thanks for having us in. As the 2023 South Dakota legislative session winds down, House and Senate negotiators have reached a compromise on a tax cut. It isn't the grocery tax cut promised during the gubernatorial campaign. Instead, the latest plan would reduce South Dakota's state 4.5% sales tax rate to 4.2%. The cut would last until June 30th of 2027 and would save taxpayers approximately $104 million in the next year. The agreement still needs final approval later today from the House of Representatives and the Senate. It would then go to Governor Kristi Noem. She could either sign it into law, veto it, or leave it unsigned, which would also allow it to become law. KELOLAND's Bob Mercer is following the debate. You can find updates on the Capitol News Bureau page on our website. As the snow continues to fall, be careful on the roads as many are slick with snow and scattered ice. Check out this camera east of Sisseton and near Lake City on Highway 10. As you can see, snow's covering the roads and visibility is not great. Be careful on the roads as the weather progresses. For an update on what we're seeing now and what's still to come, let's go to the Storm Center with meteorologist Scott Munt. Good afternoon, Scott.
Good afternoon, Dan. And that's an area that has a winter storm warning in northeastern South Dakota this afternoon, heading into the evening hours. We've had widespread snow during the morning. That is continuing in many locations as we do go into this afternoon. Periods of heavy snow still cannot be ruled out. Here's a look at what's going on across southeastern KELOLAND with snow being widespread. Southeastern South Dakota, Iowa, and Minnesota as we do take a trip into northeastern KELOLAND from Aberdeen, Huron, Mitchell, Millbank, Brookings, Watertown. All these areas reporting snow early this afternoon. You know, it's slowly trying to come to an end across western South Dakota in and around Rapid City. You see a lot of that is moving to the east. So we'll slowly start to see an end to the snow from west to east late this afternoon and this evening. Visibility, because of the snow, less than a mile. Aberdeen, Huron, and Yankton. We're at 1 mile in Watertown, Worthington, Spencer, and in Sioux Falls. Winter weather advisories do continue today in central and eastern KELOLAND. There's that winter storm warning in northeastern South Dakota, western Minnesota. You know, they've had a glaze of ice during the morning hours, some light freezing drizzle, and this is where we do expect to see some heavier snow and, of course, the reduced visibility is coming in with some travel problems across northeastern South Dakota continuing through much of the afternoon and evening. I have 3 to 6 in Pierre. I saw a report come in of 6 inches in and around Pierre, and those isolated areas may continue with that, seeing some of those higher end totals across east, central, and northeastern South Dakota. Otherwise, still a good average of 3 to 5 covering much of KELOLAND. Over the next 12 hours, you see futurecast holding to a snow chances across much of eastern South Dakota, Minnesota, and Iowa. So our temperatures are in the teens, 20s, and 30s. We have 33 in Sioux Falls, 34 in Yankton, 25 Aberdeen, but we're in the teens across western South Dakota, 19 in Rapid City, and the winds are coming in around 10 to 15 miles per hour. Let's just go with steady temperatures this afternoon. Many locations in the 20s and 30s, eventually falling to the single digits in western South Dakota. Temperatures in the teens and 20s elsewhere, and then for tomorrow, redeveloping light snow in western South Dakota. Temperatures in the 30s. That's, of course, below average. I'll have more details on the KELOLAND Live Doppler forecast coming up.
Thank you, Scott. A Sioux Falls man is behind bars accused of trying to sexually entice a 15-year-old girl on the internet. The teenage girl was actually an undercover officer. Authorities arrested 32-year-old Michael Valek on Tuesday. He pleaded not guilty in his first court appearance yesterday. Valek will appear in court again on March 13th. Reports out of Mexico say the bodies of 2 Americans kidnapped and killed will be returned to the U.S. today. Sindel Brown and Sahid Woodward traveled from South Carolina to Mexico with Eric Williams and Latavia McGee. Meanwhile, someone claiming to be the Mexican drug cartel allegedly responsible for the abduction of 4 Americans has condemned the violence and allegedly turned over its own members who were involved. An Augustana University professor has been a lifelong fan of former President Jimmy Carter, who is still in hospice care this midday. Daniel Gerling proudly displays Carter mementos inside his Sioux Falls home. He says Carter brought humility and integrity to the office of the presidency and displayed those traits well beyond his years in the White House.
When I became a teenager and became interested in politics, I learned more about him, and I just grew to really admire who he was, what he stood for, in contrast to most politicians.
Gurling will sometimes discuss Carter's policies and post-presidential actions during his American Studies class. In tonight's Eye on Cal, find out why he says it's tough to be a fan of Carter's in a state like South Dakota tonight at 10. President Joe Biden's budget proposal for the upcoming fiscal year was revealed and includes plans to cut $3 trillion from the federal deficit over the next decade by slashing subsidies for cryptocurrency and oil and gas companies. The White House is also proposing an increase in the Medicare tax for those earning more than $400,000 a year to shore up the program. Senator Mitch McConnell is in the hospital after suffering a fall. A spokesperson for the Senate Republican leader tells CBS News he tripped at a Washington, D.C. hotel during a private dinner. Nicole D'Antonio reports from Capitol Hill.
Lord, bless Senator McConnell.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is top of mind on Capitol Hill as he remains hospitalized in Washington.
I called the leader this morning and spoke briefly with his staff to extend my prayers and well wishes.
A spokesperson for the Kentucky Republicans says he tripped at a local hotel during a private dinner. He has been admitted to the hospital where he is receiving treatment. Just this week, the 81-year-old condemned Fox News host Tucker Carlson for spinning a false narrative on his TV show of the deadly January 6th riots.
I want to associate myself entirely with the opinion of the chief of the Capitol Police about what happened on January 6th.
McConnell's office has yet to provide additional details on his condition or how severe his injuries might be. With Leader McConnell absent from the Senate, lawmakers here on Capitol Hill have been wishing him well.
Along with our colleagues, I look forward to his speedy return to the United States Senate.
Back in 2019, McConnell took a spill at his Louisville home, fracturing his shoulder. The accident required weeks of recovery and physical therapy. The 81-year-old also had triple heart bypass surgery back in 2003 and is a survivor of childhood polio. This year, he became the longest-serving party leader in U.S. Senate history. Nicole D'Antonio, CBS News, Washington.
McConnell is one of several lawmakers who have been hospitalized in recent weeks, including Senators John Fetterman and Bob Casey and Congresswoman Dianne Feinstein.